Good evening, and welcome to the Alonzo Seyz Show podcast. I'm your host, Alonzo. We have a lot in store for you, America, in this 1 hour, 3-segment variety podcast. Now, I'm not a politician, but what I am is an American citizen and taxpayer who is sick and tired up to my neck with the toxic environment of decision makers at the local, state, and federal level. I started this podcast to start confronting and having real tough conversations and how to begin the process of taking action effective immediately. This is not about trying to influence or changing your party affiliation or any other affiliation for that matter. This is about bringing together individuals from all political parties and all walks of life, regardless of race, age, sex, orientation, or religious background. None of those should have nothing to do with confronting the political climate going on in America today that is affecting the very people who are financing their agenda and policies, the American working class. This show will be confronting issues with hard facts, numbers, and ideas on how to better find representatives who would descend on Washington and work with each other as well as across the aisle in a non-partisan manner, and crafting and introducing legislation that will better serve the American working class without sacrificing their political position or platform as a whole. This show will not be using numbers from so-called fiscal conservatives and ultra-liberal websites who have their own agenda when talking numbers. It will be from the very website that is available to you, the American Taxpayer, the U.S. government website, as well as Freedom of Information Act office. It's called Transparency, where you can see some of your government financial activities. All you have to do is take the initiative to go there instead of listening to these media outlets or agenda-based websites and personalities who are only foot soldiers, gatekeepers, and hired political assassins of the real American dream for the American working class. Use the same energy you would as you going on a social platform. Start educating yourself on true information, because as of now, these politicians have created infighting on issues that you cannot control, and in turn leaves the crooks to rob us blind in education and economic prosperity opportunities through misguided policies and special interests. Stop being a pedestrian and get involved, people, and slam the brakes on allowing this country to be pushed into the abyss of destruction that will affect us now and our future generations as well. The new $2.2 trillion rescue package is a prime example of why we must get involved in the process. Congress passed this legislation, and there are improprieties all over the place. This has produced financial consequences for small businesses and the American taxpayers. Corporate America has superseded the chains of command with loopholes provided to them by greedy, special interest-driven politicians on both sides. Multinational corporations with 500 or more employees have been allowed to break up their conglomerate and zone in on their less than 500 workers' facilities and apply and receive loans that they are not entitled to. There are currently 3 oversight committees to oversee the bailout package appropriation, and none are up and running due to infighting of which party will chair it, and now all the money is gone with no oversight in place. We're going to talk about that in episode 1, but let's take a closer look at what pockets the package created. Harvard University received $9 million and refused to give it back, and instead stated they would just put it toward student finances. Are you kidding me? Are you just kidding me? This university has $50 billion endowment fund that draws interest every year, so there is absolutely no reason to keep this loan. This could have been used by multiple small businesses that were suffering financially and could have kept rent paid, employees on the payroll, or purchased crucial supplies, and who also did not have access to capital like corporate America, who can raise capital or sell shares, and also, I might add, receive interest-free loans without the same rules small businesses had to abide by. These are the same small businesses that the Republicans tout and talk about protecting when there is a campaign push for livable wages, workers' rights, and access to work-related affordable health care, but they're nowhere to be found when the Small Business Association need their assistance. They were treated like the ordinary working class citizens with total and utter disregard. The first $400 billion was taken by corporate America before the small businesses could receive any funding. The second round had to be released with looser rules for them to qualify to keep them afloat. The LA Lakers received $4 million, and they're worth $4 to $5 billion. Now, some companies such as Potbelly rescinded their loans after public backlash, but a number of companies refused to give it back because they had no fear due to the powerful backers in Washington from Congress all the way up to the White House. If that had been an individual who did that, you'd be hearing from the IRS as well as the Department of Justice and prosecuted for fraud. I'm speaking of the double standard for the working class and the established companies and world elites. But you allow it by continually electing these same representatives back in office at the local, state, and federal level who turn a blind eye to improprieties. They come out to see you at election time, but try to go and schedule a meeting as a constituent which your representatives want there in office. Unless you are a business, lobbyist, or PAC group, you won't be able to see them. I tried in both offices here in Pennsylvania, Bob Casey office and Pat Toomer for that matter, and they both have the same template. They either don't have time or the space on their calendar for you individually unless it's for a photo op. The banks are also part of this elaborate scheme as well. JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, Citigroup, Bank of America, Morgan Stanley, and Goldman Sachs, all who received bailout money from us in the last recession, all collectively earned $6 to $8 billion in fees just to process loans. And instead of processing the loans in the order that they received them, they use a reshuffling scheme where they process the bigger loans first to maximize their profit at the small businesses' expense. With no oversight, people. I cannot make this up. That's why I came up with a political action committee that will push for policy changes, better oversight, and stronger taxpayer and consumer protection against companies that have gone rogue. This network will comprise of working class individuals who share ideas, solutions, and financially backing representatives throughout the USA that represent their idea and work on behalf of the American people and not corporate America and special interest groups. They will also advocate for higher paying jobs, police reform, stronger infrastructure, and more funding for education and investing in higher teacher salary. Teachers are some of the most underpaid, overworked, and unappreciated careers in the United States. There is no career that does not entail teachers, but they are the least financially protected. The problem with the current politicians is that a lot of them are career politicians, so they're bought off and in bed with the special interest and lobbyist group, much to the detriment of the American working class. Many are elected back in through political connection, namesake, or through dishonest campaign tactics. We need to get these bottom feeders out of office and back more nonpartisan candidates with sheer mobilization, voting, and financial economic force. I don't care what color you are. We are struggling and poor under the current economic policies, which is the common denominator here. Whether you're black, white, Latino, Asian, it doesn't matter because infighting keeps us separated, and the elite and congressmen rich who keeps getting reelected, who does not place your need or values in the forefront. It's their ideology and collusion that becomes their main objective. In this podcast, the 3 segments consist of Conversation of the Day, Issue Your Money, and Let's Talk About It. Now, Conversation of the Day deals with an array of issues affecting the country as well as the world at large. Issue Your Money engages the consumer and looks at your rights and how to fight unacceptable practices by the business community through Better Business Bureau, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, news media, small claims court, and other outlets. I have fought for my rights and will show you how I did and won. Some consumers are lazy and don't care to fight back and accept the status quo, which causes companies to lose respect for the consumer and have a lack of respect for you and only view you as a dollar. One person can't do it all, but with an army of consumers working together, you can force changes in policies with companies and force them to respect you as a consumer. The tools are there to prevent a complete breakdown of consumer confidence in the system, whether through disregarding your complaints, issues with warranties and products, giving you useless customer service and corporate phone numbers, and email that are usually operated by hired secondary companies that never send information to the companies themselves. We have to take charge. Our third segment will explore relationships, general issues that you're either in or exploring entering into, and how we can get better with each other by taking the time to just listen, using common sense approaches that will reward us in more ways than one, and creating stronger bonds and helping us to make better decisions regarding who we decide to date or potentially marry. Join me, ladies and gentlemen, in this journey. Everyone has a seat here. I don't care where you are in life. There will be disagreements. Most real straight conversation usually do. But bigotry, ignorance, nastiness, lack of regard or respect will not be tolerated on this podcast. Respecting each other's opinion is paramount in achieving middle ground. The problem now is that there are too many reactions and not enough listening, which leads to blanket assumptions of each other and their positions on issues. No one should feel too prominent or less prominent to get involved. Your political, religion, age, race, sex, or orientation is obsolete here because that's what has gotten us in this mess now. Ignorance of the fact and lack of regard for other people's right to happiness financially and life's prosperity wise. This is about trying to rebrand America from what it looks like now. With the current civil unrest, financial uncertainty, and the toxic environment at all levels of the government, it's time to reclaim our country back from the implosion that we are experiencing right now. We need a real game plan to win for all Americans. My first episode will be June the 22nd, and every Monday thereafter. You will have links to my podcast, website, email, social media platforms to get in touch with me with questions, ideas, feedbacks, and becoming a member of Arietta, Real Americans Ready to Take Action, Political Action Committee. Let's come together, America. Let's make a real change. On episode 1, we would expand on bailout corporate America received as opposed to working class and the number that it entrenches us as taxpayers. You have to take a stand and take action behind it to make it work. The very people who rail against the government don't realize that it belongs to us, the taxpayers. The problem is we have the wrong officials in a position that makes toxic choices with our money for the American taxpayer that leaves them enriched and us searching for answers. Everything Congress and government finance is a blank check that has been given to them and cashed by us, the taxpayers. There's a lot of disinformation put out there on purpose to mislead you into making horrible decisions and picking your representatives. Wake up, people. In our second segment, we will look at buying and selling vehicles at American auto auctions and the pros and cons associated with it. We would examine the information consumers tend to miss when entering the arena of buying and selling cars at a public auto auction. I think it'll be fun, informative, and you'll come out better armed with information when you attend some of these public auto auctions. And finally, in the third segment, we will examine whether men and women can just be friends and nothing more, and can it be sustainable if relationships are involved. I look forward to engaging, listening to your ideas and feedback. Please join me in Season 1 of the Alonzo Seyz Show. Thank you, and may we all reach life prosperity at God's speed. Thank you, and God bless. Take care, America.